a republic if you can keep it, to her question of what kind of government had you founders given us, Mr. Franklin? A republic if you can keep it. That implies a responsibility to do what's necessary to keep it. And H.L. Mencken, the social critic, a century ago, said those who don't like government are going to get it good and hard anyways. So you may want to ignore government, but government doesn't want to ignore you.
Your organization has achieved a significant dent in vaccine mandates.
We didn't do the science. We didn't do the clinical trials. We didn't do the post safety. But one thing we know it's rare.
Hello, my name is Carrie Bigford, and I am the Outreach Director with Texans for Vaccine Choice, and we are here with another engaging episode of Shot Callers. We have a very exciting guest today, Charles Frohman, who is the lobbyist for the National Health Federation. We had another one of his coworkers on with Scott Tips earlier, so if you haven't caught that Shot Callers episode, learning all about Scott Tips and the work they're doing with the Codex, then you'll definitely want to catch that up. Charles Frohman is their lobbyist, and he also does wonderful work at helping people find alternatives to health insurance options to help them escape the health insurance matrix and discover a new path. He has done all kinds of fantastic lobbying work, all focused on medical liberty. He describes himself as a libertarian yogi. He is married with 2 children, and he's living in Williamsburg, Virginia at the moment. And I'm so thankful that he's taken time out of his very busy schedule to talk to us today. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Charles to the show.
Thanks, Carrie. And I'm not that busy. Never too busy to talk to people like you, and you're a recognized leader yourself in the health freedom movement, Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. Of course. So what exciting stuff are you up to?
Just back up here. During the pandemic, as I lovingly call COVID, when I saw the Del Bigtrees and the other leaders in the movement doing a good job showing up at the advisory committees like ACIP or FERPAC to pressure the advisors to the FDA and CDC not to extend the clot shot authorization to ever younger populations. A missing part of that dynamic, I noticed, were the politicians, none of whom were raising their head to get shot at by the pharma-owned media. And, there was Senator Ron Johnson over in the Senate holding hearings with these frontline heroes about alternatives to the vaccine and how they're being persecuted. But really, the politicians weren't doing anything. So having been hired by National Health Federation, which is the world's oldest health freedom organization going back to the 1950s, and working the health freedom issues before COVID, I really wanted to get more politicians involved. So what I did was I got a letter to be authored by a few House Freedom Caucus members and a couple senators, including Ron Johnson, to really expose the horror of FDA extending the emergency authorization to ever younger kids, including toddlers. I thought if there was one thing that could slow down the COVID tyranny, it would be, come on, mothers, you can't really believe that we're going to give this clot shot to toddlers, to babies. So I got a couple dozen signers to that letter, and we did 2 of them, and we got covered in the Epoch Times and in the Daily Caller, and Robert Malone, the famous health freedom guy, Substacked or wrote about it. We have a vaccine attorney, Greg Glazer, on our staff, and he wrote a series of questions FDA would not be able to answer. And that's what impressed Robert Malone the most. But so I think I did my job during COVID by getting a group of politicians to go public in opposition to this insane Orwellian train of tyranny that all of us, if you remember how scary it was, I really wanted to start a new front against this tyranny. And I think I did so. So the Epoch Times covered it, Daily Caller. We did a second letter on another issue against Biden's unvaxxed visitor ban, really to capitalize on the controversy over keeping Novak Djokovic out of the U.S. Open. I thought, what a hero he is. Let's exploit this and get the politicians to do another letter to show that it was our fault, that this was happening, our government, our pharma-owned government. So, we killed the COVID tyranny basically when the Supreme Court ended Biden's vaccine mandate, and most of the other mandates kind of dissipated after that. There's still some horror left, but
there is.
I started learning about another assault to our informed consent, not from vaccines, but from the wireless mesh that telecom was deploying with antennas outside our bedrooms, our kids' classrooms, our local parks, without our consent. Same smothering of the science, just as they lie about the safety of vaccines, the same capture of the bureaucracies, the same playbook. And so while folks like yourself and others justifiably have kept focused on the vaccine tyranny, which still exists, some states are still trying to get rid of the religious medical exemption. It's horrible in so many ways. I diverted, and I started helping grow a grassroots movement to get all of these wireless injured people, and a third of the country, no one knows this, I didn't know this, are already sensitive to radio frequency and microwave radiation emanating from your cell phones, your routers, these 5G cell towers that are going up across the country. And, up to 5% seriously so or disabled. And I've met some of these people. They're like the vaccine injured kids that you see in the state legislators when the politicians try to steal the religious exemption. Damaged. And they can't be in their homes. They can't be in their neighborhoods. They have to get in their cars and go live in parks. And it's horrible. So that's what I've become focused on and pretty knowledgeable on that issue. So we've had Zooms with telecom staffers in Congress over the past 2 years, every week or so. We've had well over 100 meetings. And it's not as easy as vaccines, because with vaccines, you had a COVID catastrophe wake people up. So a good chunk of America is with us on informed consent, fixing the science, et cetera. We don't have that kind of support with telecom wireless. People still just want faster downloads and no gaps in coverage when they're driving to Disney World. They don't really know too much else about the dangers. So we're behind the 8 ball. So a lot of the meetings are frustrating, and that we're just educating staffers like you and I were educating staffers a decade ago on vaccine harm, which they'd never heard of.
Right. So that is a newer topic, and you see articles about it every now and again, but how do you know if you're sensitive, or what are some of the signs of sensitivity to EMF for an individual? Like, what are some things that they would notice? Because usually, just like with vaccine injury, you have a range of symptoms that you don't always know what to attribute it to, because they're like generalized symptoms sometimes. They don't always have a rapid onset. How would you know as an individual that perhaps the driver of your symptomatology is these EMF radio waves?
Well, that's a great question, because the harm, this is political. The FCC will want you to think that there's no harm unless this thing heats your skin, a thermal effect. And they won't acknowledge harms that are not thermal. In other words, if there's no heating, you don't feel it, there's no harm, right? That's not what the scientists found back in decades ago in the military, at the EPA, and even with whistleblowers from industry. The harm is what's called biological. You don't feel it. And it agitates your DNA, which the National Toxicology Program found, leading to cancer. High-level evidence there. Politically, cynically, that study was ignored by the FDA, which paid the $30 million for the study.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
This is such a catastrophe of an issue.
Yeah.
Once you go down the rabbit hole, it's horrible. But symptoms, once it hits you, it'll be too late. There are mitigating things you can do to minimize the harm and damage and prevent it. But lethargy, ringing in the ears, headaches, neurological, autoimmune. There are so many tens of thousands of studies of harm. And if you look at the studies and look at those that are not funded by industry, 80% find harm. And the World Health Organization, which of course I don't like, and I want us to leave it and defund it, it finally was honest and just this past April reported a high level of cancer. If cancer has been found by the World Health Organization, by the NTP, National Toxicology Program, by whistleblowers from industry at Swisscom and T-Mobile, and EPA found that there's long-term exposure problems, and FCC, when it claimed a few years ago that its exposure limits, they claim to regulate the emissions of radiation and power from these cell towers. When they claimed that their very old limits from the 1990s were adequate for the modern age, guidelines made before the invention of the smartphone, thankfully, the DC Circuit remanded that claim, saying FCC was capricious when claiming adequacy of its clearly outdated limits on what is a safe exposure. And the court said FCC was arbitrary because they ignored more than 10,000 pages of scientific evidence of biological harm to humans and the environment. So we're flying blind. No one is regulating what is a safe exposure. Meanwhile, there is no barrier except for our coalition against telecom passing bills. Last Congress, this Congress, they're passing bills as we speak. In the last Congress, we lost on the parks issue. So now when you go hiking, there's no limit to telecom. And the language does deputize to lobbyists the discretion on where to locate antennas near where you hike or hunt on all the parks across the country. And if you look at cell towers near your neighborhood, there was something passed in the defense law in the last Congress, in the big, beautiful bill last month, authorizing what is called a spectrum auction. And that's where the FCC and the Commerce Department sell frequency bands to telecom companies like Verizon and T-Mobile. And once industry buys access to that spectrum, they then use a law that preempts local barriers to deployment of antennas. So they're going to if you look at the existing cell towers, they're going to be overloaded by a bunch of new antennas, no matter how much you as a property owner want to set back those antennas. And that's the goal here. There's a bill from Chris Smith of New Jersey that would restore local discretion, the local right to zone towers, a mile away from your bedroom, a mile away from your kid's classroom.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, cell towers will beam your calls 10 miles. So towers don't need to be close to your house or your school or your office or your local parks. They can be put in industrial zones, on hilltops far out in the country, along the highway as we see them. We're not going to stop that, and that's okay. But we've already paid on our landline bills a surcharge over the past decade in exchange for a promised wired connection that never took place. And the irregulators took that controversy to the court. And while they lost their case, they did get a green light from the DC Appeals Court for attorneys general in every state to investigate what happened to that money. Hundreds of billions of dollars in surcharges on landlines never were used for the promised wired connection to what's called the last mile to your house. And if you're in a rural area, telecom is using language like tech neutrality to force you as a rural homeowner to accept fixed wireless instead of a wire, instead of fiber or cable. Mm-hmm. And not telling you that it's not as reliable, not as fast, and it's not as affordable in the long run. So it's a waste of taxpayer money, and it's also insecure. So, and then the unfortunate thing is in the leaked Maha report, where Kennedy is going to recommend changes in law to make us healthy. They did give in to our pressure to have HHS study the harm of wireless radiation, but they also put in language continuing the promotion of deployment, this time not in the parks or with existing towers, but on the farms. So there's not going to be anywhere you can escape if this language goes through from Kennedy. And, I like Kennedy as much as anybody. I'm a half glass full type of person. I understand what he's up against. all that. But they haven't learned yet. That's my point. This is a slow, frustrating process. So I hope that your Health Freedom friends will open their minds to helping our coalition schedule Zooms. And we'll do the talking. Odette Wilkins, the lawyer that works with me, she and I do all the talking. All we need from locals is, do you have any experience fighting cell towers on your kid's school? A lot of parents have been involved with that. Fighting smart meters. I have my I have my analog smart meter right here. This was taken off my house by the utility monopoly, and in exchange, they put on a wireless radiation emitting meter. That is a Fifth Amendment taking. It's a trespass. It's an assault on my health from wireless radiation. And it's taking my property value because cell towers cut property values by 20%. So, we need everyone to help get meetings. We need everyone to opt out of smart meters or to pressure your state legislatures to allow you to opt out, because some states you can't even opt out. We need help getting meetings with politicians, and you can do your own mitigating things personally. You should put your phone in airplane mode. You're not using it. If it's in your pocket, it should not be in your pocket unless it's in airplane mode, period. Your router, turn it off at night. You don't need it at night. You want to sleep. Put your phones outside your bedroom. If you can Ethernet your house, do so. Most people won't do that. But those are a few things to do. So that's a lot. I mean, there are other health freedom issues I'm involved with, imposing competition on Obamacare. We can go there if you want. Talk about health payment reform. How do we integrate the delivery of health care? I'm involved with that through something called competitive certification. It's a bill in Oklahoma. But those are the main three things I think your audience would be interested in. The health payment side. Most health freedom lobbyists don't know much about health payment, but I'm professionally involved with that, so I can discuss that. And then a lot of folks are wondering, how do we get better doctors, integrated doctors? And the Oklahoma has a bill to solve that, but no one knows about that either. But if you want to hear about those things, we'd have to discuss them.
I mean, it sounds like I'll be having you back on already, because we're not going to be able to cover all those topics in one thing, but I'm in to hear about all of it. But for the EMFs, I want to tease out a little bit more. So the average person who's never heard of this, who maybe comes across this podcast, could come away with a deeper understanding of where their buy-in is on this issue. So I know that but our audience may not know that humans have a very delicately balanced electromagnetic field that we generate ourselves, and we interact with our electromagnetic field to other, inanimate and animate objects in the world. And this unseen but very powerful electromagnetic radiation can change the way our cells and inner fluids vibrate. And it can affect our health expression in lots of different systems because of that vibrational shift. If you want to get a little nerdy, because I love to get a little nerdy, you can do some wonderful research by Masaru Emoto. He did wonderful research about water, how changing the intention and thinking and the electromagnetic frequency of the water changes the structure of the molecules of the water. And humans are more water than anything else. And so that's a great entryway to help you as an individual who maybe doesn't know anything about this to kind of more fully understand how your physical body can be so heavily impacted from something that you can't see or detect until it hits a critical mass, as Charles mentioned earlier. It's very alarming, right, Charles, that they are moving ahead with making all of these plans for us to have more of this radiation available without actually any research showing the safety to humans or to wildlife. Talk to me about the lack of safety research that's there.
Well, that's what they want to tell you, but actually, Susan Clark, a former public health research administrator at Harvard, has presented a few times on my monthly NHF Zoom. There's actually, the science is settled, even though I hate that phrase.
Same, I hate it.
And I don't agree with the presumption that science can be settled.
Science
Otherwise,
is never
it's not
settled.
Science,
right?
But if science can be settled, it's more settled here than in any other public health area. There are tens of thousands of studies, more than were said to be needed to settle the science on pesticides, lead, and cigarettes. So if there's any public health science settling going on is with wireless radiation, it goes back decades. They just ignore the science, or they buy their scientists to discount any claims of danger. And they've done a fantastic job, even better than with vaccines, by saying by convincing everyone that it's somehow safe to put a radiating emitting phone by your ear. This is what causes glioblastomas, brain cancer. But to go back to what you said, you said a lot there. One connection with newbies is that they probably have heard in integrated healthcare to deal with the chronic diseases, the real epidemic, that you should do with something called grounding. With bare feet, go out into your grass in your front yard and walk around and, look at the sun and absorb the natural electromagnetic radiation of the sun, which, as you kind of alluded, is sort of a frequency that's in tune with our natural human frequency. And people have to separate that natural frequency of God's realm with these artificial frequencies. And if people should think about a story they've heard about what's called Havana syndrome. Maybe they've heard that diplomats in Cuba and China have complained about symptoms that are similar to symptoms when you are a victim of a Pentagon weapon called active denial, which is crowd control. It's a 5G beamforming frequency weapon. A 5G frequency modulates in a way that is similar to weaponry used by the Pentagon. So if you trust industry to put 5G small cells on every other street lamp on your neighborhood, you should think about that there are diplomats complaining about devastating injuries from doing their job as diplomats around the world. So it's a weapon. And I guess telecom says it can be used for beneficial communication, but just keep that in mind. It's a good and bad technology. And then, I mentioned the court case. This is the elephant in the room that we tell every congressional staffer. The D.C. Circuit has remanded FCC's claim that its exposure limits for radiation are adequate. FCC has been slapped down. There are no approved exposure limits right now. And the reason the D.C. Circuit, the federal appeals court in D.C., almost the second highest level below Supreme Court, said FCC was capricious in ignoring more than 10,000 pages of evidence of biological harm to humans and the environment. The evidence is there. The EPA found this danger as biological back in the 1980s. And when they tried to fund long-term exposure studies, they were defunded by Congress. That's suspicious. You have a terrifying finding and then long-term exposure plans, and they said, nuh-uh, not going to happen. What?
Yeah.
You have a 30 million study with the National Toxicology Program that finds DNA damage in cancer with a high level of certainty, and the payer, the FDA, which paid for that study, ignores the study. And then last year, NTP announces it no longer will study wireless radiation. And we have whistleblower evidence from industry. People should think about that. They've learned through the COVID tyranny that pharma lies about the science. Government won't do comparison studies with the unvaxxed because they know that private versions of those studies have all reproduced the same result, which is thousands of percent more chronic disease among the vaccinated.
Yep. And when they audited their own injury system VAERS, when they did the Harvard program study in the mid-2000s, they discovered that the injury rate was like 1 in 35, nowhere near the 1 in a million that their marketing claims. And then just like with the FDA study you were talking about with the EMFs, they just shut the study down, never went to full implementation, and just like blew all that money for no reason and trying to hide those results. It was only through FOIA that we even got those results.
It was ignored, cynically, weirdly, insanely.
Yep.
And
very frustrating.
That's why people like you and me, I'm sure, and others, and most of them in the movement are thrilled that we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. where he is.
Yeah, it feels very surreal even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just to have him there and knowing that it's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, because he's lined up against the most powerful interest in the world, healthcare.
For sure.
And number 2 is technology. So,
yeah,
this is an important issue, but I think more and more people are adopting it. Thankfully, RFK is including it in his Maha investigation, so that's going to give cover to Republicans to stop being such useless water carriers of telecom, including your Senator Ted Cruz. He's the worst. He chairs commerce.
Yep. No lies detected there. That's an honest critique of Ted Cruz, and I would agree with that completely.
Yeah. I mean, he co-signed my letter against the FDA clot shot. So, no politician is, it's not black or white. It's not good or bad. It's just that on certain issues, Republicans are just terrible. And only now are they waking up.
Yeah, there's no perfect party and no perfect candidate. And I have never found the perfect politician that I'm all in with.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not a thing. You do the best you can with the people that you have available.
And I don't blame them. I mean, people just don't know.
Right.
We've met with his staff. We've tried to educate him. It's going to take more pressure from Texas to get on Cruz's case. I think your congressman is pretty bad on the wireless issue. I think he has a bill. There's a dozen bills. There's so many. I mentioned earlier the auctioning of spectrum from the big beautiful bill that Telecom wants. They want to take frequencies used by the Pentagon and NASA for missile launch frequencies and use them for cell phones. And there's a preempting law section called 6409 that the Verizons will use to load existing cell towers with new antennas. And that's how they will boost spectrum for your cell phone calls. Eye Patch McCain, whatever his name is, your congressman, has a bill to allow the preemption under 6409 for any structure, any building. So, and property owners, I hope realtors get involved because they're losing deals because self-thinking people don't want a house next to a cell tower.
Right.
And if we get the realtors involved, losing deals, that'll be powerful for our movement. Property owners need to rise up and say, we don't want the cell phones in our schools with our kids. We don't want the towers near our schools. We don't want our property values hurt by nearby cell towers or 5G small cells. And if we get a grassroots movement that way from property owners and realtors, and then hopefully farmers, farmers are losing livestock. There have been court cases shutting down towers for killing cows and depleting milk yield, blinding calves, self-harming cows, bankrupting farmers on John Deere self-driving tractor deals. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the farmers because that's the next front.
Yeah.
We lost with the parks, existing towers, and this is going to be a huge issue. And people
absolutely. And in a dark world, is it possible that the lobbyists for telecom and the lobbyists for pharma could get together and decide to pool their efforts to continue to work against us because they both benefit? They'll get their cell towers. Pharma will get more sick people who will need to come to them for interventions. Like, is that a thing that could happen, or is that just like a nightmare from the depths of me?
Oh, that's a nightmare that has some possibility. I think depopulation is a word that even people on the fence have had to confront as a possibility.
Right.
We still don't know what the ingredients are in the clot shot.
Agreed. Yeah.
We
still don't even have the data from the Moderna ones. We only have the Pfizer.
Yeah. And even there, do we really fully know what's in there?
Exactly.
Or what batch?
Yeah, exactly.
So I've had experts that have warned that certain ingredients in the clot shot will get triggered by the 5G deployment and kill you or hurt you. Whether pharma likes what telecom is doing, I'm sure they don't mind. It does create new customers,
Right.
Why is telecom exploiting the desperation of rural households to get a wireless connection? Well, to make more money, because antennas last only 5 years, so the upgrading cost will bring in more revenue for telecom. It's not good for consumers because they've already paid that surcharge on the landline for a wired connection to their home. And so they never got that. They've been ripped off. And now they're paying taxpayer dollars for infrastructure of fiber, or if you're really unfortunate, a fixed wireless base station so you connect with Elon. I guess it's better than nothing, but you're going to get radiation. Whereas if you got the fiber you've already paid for, a cable, yeah, that's safe and faster and more affordable in the long run. But they want to monetize our data. So they want the sensors in your TV, your microwave, and your fridge, and your smart meter and your router and the towers. And, if they can get a social credit score for dissidents, if you don't comply with your doctor's orders, some of the insurance plans that we sell as agents have compliance provisions that if you don't if you don't comply with your doctor's prescription, we won't pay your bill. Which I find pretty nefarious because a lot of self-thinking people don't want to comply with an allopath recommendation because thank you very much. I know, I'm not really interested in your adverse events, what you call side effects. If you're not compliant, maybe you don't get access to your bank account. Witness the protesters in Ottawa who lost access to their bank information. Or you have to suffer, energy rationing or some other demerits. You can't go to school or get a loan from the government or a job with the government. So, the behavior coercion with a digital ID is just around the corner. And you can't coerce behavior without this wireless mesh that you don't need. And we're not Luddites. You can have your cell towers zoned appropriately so you don't get radiated so far away. And then to your house, you can have a wire, whether it's fiber, cable, copper, doesn't matter. But telecom isn't letting us have the wired connection we paid for. They really are forcing, with no informed consent, no science, this wireless mesh. And we need people to listen to this kind of podcast. We need health freedom people to come over to the safe tech community and see it like Bobby sees it. He sees a synergistic effect happening, causing the chronic disease epidemic from all of it. The over-vaccination, with the frank
multifactorial.
Yeah. And then I also get into health payment. We want people to become cash shoppers as patients, to become more discriminatory about what you accept from these allopaths. Using health savings accounts to save if you don't overspend money. Using our vendors who help you shop on price. Texas has some really good ambulatory surgical centers where you can get a well-priced surgery in Dallas, Texas Free Market Surgery Center. Austin has Sedera sharing, which is a better price than Obamacare. They help you shop on price. They have low out-of-pocket. You combine it with a DPC, which is a subscription monthly primary care doctor, or an HSA, which is a nest egg creator. You can build $100,000 with the HSA. But that's part of it, too, as a health freedom warrior. You want to become a cash patient. So you don't overspend and you're not a victim of these compromised allopaths.
Well, and so you're also not dependent upon them because the allopathic model is not known for generating health. It's known for managing disease. And if you want to leave that model, it can be a lot of sticker shock for someone who isn't prepared to come up with a plan B. So I love what you're doing with those options about creating pathways for people to leave that system as they say they want to, but not go bankrupt because somebody broke an arm, that happens.
And it's like leaving a bank for a credit union. So it's, sharing companies won't seem that much different to you than Obamacare. You're going to pay a monthly fee. It's going to be an out-of-pocket liability. And then the sharing community shares in the catastrophic expensive stuff, the unexpected sicknesses and accidents. So, people that go there never go back to insurance because it's a better deal financially, no network, so you have choice. And it's not adversarial.
When I left, it was very
trust.
freeing. Yeah.
But they also need to learn about licensing and certification. People are so paranoid about quality, of being connected to a quack. And licensing isn't going to protect you from a quack. In fact, licensing becomes a license to do ill because it doesn't really tell you if your doctor is high quality or not. So Oklahoma has a bill to allow anyone certified by an organization that's duly registered with the government to escape licensing. And the only job of the government then becomes to prosecute fraud, which is what the Attorney General do in every market already anyways. So It doesn't really change what government does. But it just it allows an alternative way for licensing to dry up on the vine. And we need to train consumers to become better shoppers. Because right now they're sheep. They're slapping down that Blue Cross card and asking what my copay is and just saying yes, sir, to the doctor.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of education that needs to be done because, there's been that intentional push to disempower us and kind of remove us from our own healthcare and feeling like someone else is going to just tell us what to do. And, they kind of removed that inner sense of responsibility and recognizing your active role as a patient, as the owner of the body is totally antithetical to the way that allopathic medicine is currently running things. And people are leaving in droves, but there are still a lot of people who are not aware. And they're like, oh, I'm getting these, $1,000 a month employer benefits. I might as well use it. But they're not really understanding how that model is setting them up for a different outcome than they could have had they left that system that had more personal empowerment. I mean, and tying that back to the EMF, recognizing those subtle symptomatologies and what's driving them. I just don't see allopathic medicine right now being equipped to handle those conversations. They can't even routinely have a grown-up, conversation about vaccines with patients. They resort to shaming and blaming and judging or coercing in some way. And the EMF thing, because it's invisible, is so much more challenging. So let's say you're an individual that is concerned about this. You've seen this podcast, you've read some things, you've seen stuff around, and you're beginning to wake up to the potentiality that this could be a real driver of harm for individuals and the community. How can they get involved at a local level? I hear you talking about federal laws, international things, but how can the individual in their own hometown become impactful or get engaged in some way? How can they do that?
Well, I won't expect, and you won't expect either, anyone getting somewhat educated on the issue, getting the bravery to go testify before their city council to encourage a zoning ordinance to properly set back towers sufficiently far from a neighborhood, a classroom, or a park. Those people exist and they do important work, and the city council does need to be educated about an ordinance to properly set back these wireless emitting devices far from our bedrooms and classrooms. Short of that, what they can do is, number one, opt out of your smart meter. Once you call your utility to opt out of your smart meter, you'll take a big step to protecting your family and your neighbors from unneeded radiation. The analog meter requiring manned reading has worked perfectly fine in America for decades, and it will continue to do so. And that goes for electricity, water, and gas, because they want to digitalize all those meters, and all of those wireless radiation emitting devices, act in a cumulative effect along with your devices and your router and nearby towers to harm you and agitate your DNA, as the National Toxicology Program found. So that's one thing you can do. And then just do little things. Cell phones belong in airplane mode when you're not using them. Try not to hold them in your hand. Try and get a hands-free device like a radio frequency engineer here in Virginia gave me. So, it just sits in your desk and it grabs your phone and it can twist sideways. and then turn off your router at night. As far as involvement, the health freedom groups like yours are the infrastructure that needs to deputize one or two people that care about this to sort of add a subdivision of your group to sort of, volunteer to take on the burden of learning this issue and scheduling meetings for me. About 16 states have done that. It's not easy. The main vaccine advocate can't be the one who does this because that person already is burnt out. Here in Virginia, we've gone through 4 fantastic leaders in lobbying over the past decade in Richmond.
Yeah.
They're all gone.
It's a hard road.
Yeah. It's a thankless job.
It is.
So when I tell my fellow health freedom advocates, I'm not asking you to be the wireless expert because it ain't going to work. But plant the seed. If there's anybody in your network that is willing to take on the burden of learning this issue and helping get meetings, that is something that we need in every state. And we have some volunteers that'll help you get the meeting scheduled on Zoom. We have a formula. But if you want to get active politically, that's what you can do. But most folks don't want to do that. So personally, I just say, look, opt out your smart meter, do your personal protection things, airplane mode, turn off the router, walk outside in the sunlight on your grass barefoot to ground so you can really feel this issue. All the best doctors now for the real epidemic of chronic disease are going to tell you to do that, to ground. Mm-hmm. Go into your local park. By the way, the law was passed making your park less helpful for that purpose. That should concern you and give you a reason to get involved. We have a semi-monthly Zoom, the National Call for Safe Technology. People can join if they want to get serious and learn about it. A lot of people are on there. A lot of folks are injured. You wouldn't believe how many are getting injured. 1/3 of America already is sensitive, up to 5% seriously so, up to 1% disabled by it. That's millions of people.
Yeah.
Not much in a 240 million population, but still, it's a big number. My National Health Federation Zoom meets every 3rd Friday, and we'll return to the wireless issue, every few months. I just did supplements. I got you next month, along with another person. There's a big effort to do a religious federal fix for those states that are kind of in danger.
I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
And then Greg Glazer, our attorney, may come on and talk about the NICE Act that we have in Congress.
Wonderful.
And then we'll go to other issues. Geoengineering, we cover all the issues. Competitive certification to expand the minds of doctors, which is important. I mean, these allopaths dragging their feet, they're a frustrating bunch for any vaccine-aware parent.
Yeah.
But we need them to become integrated. We want to work with them. So there are other groups, including mine, that have state law ideas, scope of practice, expansion, exemption, safe harbors, competitive certification.
We've presented several different ideas here. Yeah.
But we do, the frontline doctors have become more integrated. Simone Gold has Gold Care, which is a new integrated telemedicine shop that I'm helping out a bit. So there's good news among the allopaths. They're starting to learn. We can't succeed without them. We need them
absolutely
to become integrated and join us.
Right.
And this MAHA effort is so big. It's beyond Bobby Kennedy and it's beyond the Trump administration. And Democrats are better than Republicans on some issues like pesticides and GMOs.
Yeah, it's wanting humans to be healthy is a nonpartisan issue.
Yeah.
Or it should be. Like the fact that it's become so partisan is ridiculous. And I want to remind our audience, as Charles was talking about visiting your city council, that at TFEC, if you're anywhere in Texas and you want to get involved and learn how to become an impactful advocate, you can join our volunteer program and you will learn how to create an effective testimony at city councils, at your county commissioner's court, at school boards, at all different types of government meetings. That's an entire category of outreach here at TFEC that we can help coach you on. So if you are interested in getting brave, we can help you be impactful and make your bravery count, for sure. So as we move forward looking at this issue, Charles, is people just disengaging enough to send a signal? Like, how can we really, like, do we need to be having conversations about this with others? Like, what are some easy ways that you can broach this topic with like your friend or your coworker to kind of just get the ball rolling? I find that fear is usually a big barrier to outreach. People are scared to begin. How would you help them begin?
Well, that's never easy, especially since COVID, when most of us who think were taught to keep our mouths shut because we weren't getting anywhere with our normie friends. When we cast aspersion on the COVID vaccine, you remember family members, friends, coworkers. It wasn't proving very fruitful to raise a topic with them because they were pretty vicious and keeping their paradigm and blaming you for killing everyone as a spreader, hurting grandma. That said, I know you're the communication expert. And
yeah, I was going to say, I respectfully disagree. I tripled down and it was a period of really intense growth for outreach because I was able to reach not everyone will be reached, period. But you can try and you can be successful even during the crazy pandemic times.
And you're going to prove that.
Outreach is a skill. It's a skill.
September 19th on NHF's monthly Zoom.
Yeah.
So come here, Carrie, teach us how to communicate when, we were kind of cowed from the COVID experience. But, I got trained as a teacher. I left lobbying to become a high school teacher. So I know about how to find common ground to start a conversation.
Absolutely.
So it's not that I haven't tried it or I don't do it. I just know a lot of folks they've had it.
It's good to use discernment to recognize when someone truly isn't willing, because some people truly are not willing. And the best gift you can do to yourself is recognize those people quickly and move on to someone who is less resistant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm recalling conversations I've had recently, Aaron Rodgers, who I know is not the best professional sports figure to raise with a vaccine proponent. Interviews on the sports program, McAfee, that a lot of us sports fans watch, he had wired earbuds. And they asked him, why don't you have AirPods? Because he goes, I care about my health. And so, if someone's an athlete, I might allude to Rogers' statement there about wired connections. A physical therapist who trains professional athletes, Justin Franson from EMF Rocks. He was at our last NHF conference in Dallas.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
He said that he tells athletes in recovery, why do you have that Apple Watch on your wrist? That's going to hamper your recovery. So, the competitive juices of men, at least, probably women too at certain times, you could use that to open up the conversation that, Apple Watches and AirPods don't go with the professional athlete or the serious athlete. Did you know that? Have you heard of that? Get a prompted response. And then just mentioning just airplane mode and opting out, that gets people to think that's an easy thing to do. That's light lifting. Use that as a conversation opener.
Okay.
How we can help our neighbors avoid reductions in our property values, hit them in their pocketbook. That's a great line opener. Did you know this? Did you see it? Did you see the study where nearby cell towers crush home values by 20%? I don't think we want any of that near our neighborhood. Do you?
Right.
Or
you could also go,
governors are now working with Kennedy to kick cell phones out of schools. Isn't that great? We need to have our kids reading, not playing video games at school. What do you think about that? And so, those are middle ground types of visions that can be used to start a conversation, I think.
I think those are all great. I know that sometimes when I reach out to people on this topic, I have sometimes started with, humans have been around for a long time, but technology has not been around for very long. And our bodies have never been designed to deal with this much unseen radiations and force and toxicity before. Here are some ways that you can help protect yourself to, let our bodies live the way they were designed, right? I've taken that track, and that has been effective. But all of those ideas were great, because that's usually where people struggle, I've found, is getting that conversation starter, that way to start that informed process after you've spent that time connecting, is usually challenging. So I love those. Those were all great outreach bridges. Those were great.
The grounding has been a good bridge too.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that earlier.
It feels good to be barefoot.
Yeah. Have you heard about the grounding?
Yeah.
Trend? Where, you're supposed to barefoot walk in your grass, get healthy. And they go, oh, that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah.
And then you conflict that with, the artificial EMF going, they don't really go together, do they?
Right.
Not good for your sleep. People care about their sleep.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people aren't sleeping very well. And I wonder if it's the iPhones, 12 inches from their head, right on their nightstand, that could be affecting that.
The smart meter.
Yeah.
The smart meter is constantly pulsing. And even with the, a lot of opt-out meters are not true opt-outs. They're still digital. They're non-communicating, but they still communicate, usually at 11 p.m. or 3 a.m. And that cycle wakes you up. And then nearby smart meters will connect to your electricity and wake you up. So we need what's called a building biologist. You got to pay a bit to have them visit your house. And with their meters, they'll teach you what's safe in your bedroom, in your kids' rooms. And ultimately, they'll go to your circuit breaker box and put stars by the switches you should turn off at night. And I had that done in my house.
Yeah.
And I tried it. And so I had a pretty good sleep on those nights I tried it. But building biologist is a new trade of experts that you can have visit your house. And rich people pay big money for those people. They know about this.
Can an individual purchase their own EMF reader and begin to track their electromagnetic frequency radiation in their own home and kind of do it DIY style? Or do you have to have a particular license to do it?
No, you can buy an EMF reader. If you want to learn more about this, join the National Call. And I can give you the website.
Please share.
They have a building biologist on there all the time presenting. Because one funny thing about this is that there's lots of entrepreneurs trying to give the best mitigating device, and they argue, they disagree what's best, and that's great.
Discourse is always great.
Yeah. It's like supplements.
Yeah. Debate it away.
Yeah, exactly. Or what's the best natural treatment?
We'll get better products. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the free market and the chaos.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are all great suggestions. So I want to just recap because we're running out of time soon. But I definitely want to have you back on to discuss some of the other wonderful projects that you're a part in. Like, there's just such a wealth of information that lives in you. So I'm so thankful that you've been here. But I want to recap to our audience to help protect themselves from EMF. And please correct me if I missed something, Charles, is you want to opt out of the smart meter. You want to get a dumb meter. You want to turn off your router at night. You want to consider either getting an EMF reader yourself and learning how to use that, or hiring a building biologist who can help you determine where your hot spots are in your house. And then you want to take that advice and go to your master electrical board, and you want to turn off certain things at night to help reduce your body's exposure. Then you want to get involved at the local level, whatever comfort level you have, or maybe even that next step past your comfort level, and begin to speak out about needing to have common sense regulations and rules about where these huge, electricity, radiation emitting towers can be placed near our homes, schools, and wildlife. Is that a good recap, or did I miss anything?
You have good recall, Carrie.
Wonderful.
I will add a quote. For those who don't want to get involved or think they're helpless, keep in mind that you're an American, and founding father Benjamin Franklin did answer the passerby in 1787 outside the Philadelphia Convention, a republic if you can keep it, to her question of what kind of government had you founders given us, Mr. Franklin? A republic, if you can keep it. That implies a responsibility to do what is necessary to keep it.
Absolutely.
And H.L. Mencken, the social critic, a century ago, said those who don't like government are going to get it good and hard anyways. So you may want to ignore government, but government doesn't want to ignore you.
And they won't ignore you. They won't. They won't leave you alone.
Paraphrase.
Yeah, the government won't ignore you. They will not ignore you. You may want them to, but they will keep coming back. And it is important for us as individuals to get involved, to get engaged. We create the world that we invest in. And it's time for all of us to remember that we are investing in our present. We're investing in our future. We're investing in our children's future. At Team TFVC, just like at NHF, we bend over backwards to help teach people how to be empowered and impactful advocates. Find your lane, discover your people, and get the work done. We have a many hands make light work philosophy at TFVC. There are a lot of volunteers doing specific things that bring their heart joy, that they do well, that are very impactful alone and astoundingly impactful cumulatively with all of their compatriots. Consider finding friends and like-minded people to lighten the burden, because the burden is going to bury you if you can't find a way to lift it with some friends. Yeah? Amen. Thank you so much, Charles. I have really enjoyed this. I am already looking forward to the next time I get to have you on. So I definitely want to get that scheduled. I think we're going to do a lot of really great work together in the future. I am Carrie Bigford, Outreach Director with Texans for Vaccine Choice. Our wonderful guest has been Charles Frohman, and this has been another episode of Shot Callers. I'm looking forward to next time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Shot Callers podcast. Please, if you found value in this content, rate us and share the podcast with a friend. It's a great way to get the message out and to empower everyone to make informed decisions. Until next time, never forget, we are the Shot Callers.